ഹരി ഓം. കോഴിക്കോട് ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ മിഷൻ ഓൺലൈനായി നടത്തുന്ന ആത്മീയ അന്തർയോഗം ആരംഭിക്കുകയാണ്. ഇവരെയും സ്വാഗതം ചെയ്യുന്നു. ആദ്യമായി സന്യാസിവര്യന്മാർ വേദപാരായണം നടത്തുന്നതാണ്.
ശാന്തിമന്ത്രാഃ. ശ്രീഗുരുഭ്യോ നമഃ. ഹരിഃ ഓം. സഹനാവവതു സഹനൗ ഭുനക്തു സഹ വീര്യം കരവാവഹൈ തേജസ്വിനാവധീതമസ്തു മാ വിദ്വിഷാവഹൈ. ഓം ശാന്തി ശാന്തി ശാന്തിഃ. ഹരിഃ ഓം. शन्नो मित्रशं वरुणः शन्नो भवत्वर्यमा शन्न इन्द्रो बृहस्पतिः शन्नो विष्णुरुक्रमः. नमो ब्रह्मणे नमस्ते वायो त्वमेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्मासि त्वामेव प्रत्यक्षं ब्रह्म वदिष्यामि ऋतं वदिष्यामि सत्यं वदिष्यामि तन्मामवतु तद्वक्तारमवतु अवतु माम् अवतु वक्तारम्. ओम शांति शांति शांतिः. हरिः ओम. भद्रं कर्णेभिः शृणुयाम देवाः भद्रं पश्येमाक्षभिर्यजत्राः स्थिरैरङ्गैस्तुष्टुवागुंसस्तनूभिः व्यशेम देवहितं यदायुः. स्वस्ति न इन्द्रो वृद्धश्रवाः स्वस्ति नः पूषा विश्ववेदाः स्वस्ति नस्तार्क्ष्यो अरिष्टनेमिः स्वस्ति नो बृहस्पतिर्दधातु. ओम शांति शांति शांतिः. हरिः ओम. तच्छंयोरावृणीमहे गातुं यज्ञपतये दैवी स्वस्तिरस्तु नः स्वस्तिर्मानुषेभ्यः ऊर्ध्वं जिगातु भेषजं शन्नो अस्तु द्विपदे शञ्चतुष्पदे. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. हरिः ॐ. ॐ पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते. ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः. हरिः ॐ. तत्सत्. ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണാർപ്പണമസ്തു.
വേദപാരായണം നടത്തിയ സന്യാസിവര്യന്മാർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി കോഴിക്കോട് ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ മിഷൻ ഹയർ സെക്കൻഡറി സ്കൂളിൽ നിന്നും സംഗീത അധ്യാപികയായി വിരമിച്ച രജനി ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
श्रीरामकृष्णस्वरूपं धर्मस्वरूपं भक्तिस्वरूपं श्रीरामकृष्णस्वरूपं धर्मस्वरूपं भक्तिस्वरूपं वेदान्ततत्त्वस्वरूपं श्रीरामकृष्णप्रभावं सत्यप्रभावं त्यागप्रभावम् आत्मैक्यशक्तिप्रभावं श्रीरामकृष्णप्रसादं ज्ञानप्रसादं शान्तिप्रसादं जीवितमोक्षप्रसादं श्रीरामकृष्णप्रसूनं भारतसंस्कारदिव्यप्रसूनं विश्वसौहार्दप्रसूनं श्रीरामकृष्णस्वरूपं धर्मस्वरूपं भक्तिस्वरूपं धर्मस्वरूपं भक्तिस्वरूपं धर्मस्वरूपं भक्तिस्वरूपम्.
ഭജന പാടിയ രജനി ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി തൃശ്ശൂർ ശാരദാ മഠത്തിലെ സംഗീത അധ്യാപികയായ ജീജ ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
गुरुमहिमा गुरुमहिमा अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा किं करणीयं गुरुमहिमा किमकरणीयं गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा किं वजनीयं गुरुमहिमा किमवजनीयं गुरुमहिमा किं वजनीयं गुरुमहिमा किमवजनीयं गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा अणोरणीयान् गुरुमहिमा महदो महीयान् गुरुमहिमा अणोरणीयान् गुरुमहिमा महदो महीयान् गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा अज्ञाननाशन विज्ञानपोषण प्रज्ञाप्रबोधन गुरुमहिमा अज्ञाननाशन विज्ञानपोषण प्रज्ञाप्रबोधन गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा सच्चिदानन्द गुरुमहिमा भावय हे मन गुरुमहिमा सच्चिदानन्द गुरुमहिमा भावय हे मन गुरुमहिमा 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 अपार महिमा गुरुमहिमा.
ഹരി ഓം. ഭജന പാടിയ ജീജ ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി ഭഗവാൻ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ പരമഹംസരുടെ ശിഷ്യനായ ബ്രഹ്മാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ ശിഷ്യനായ പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ വേദാന്ത സൊസൈറ്റി ഓഫ് ന്യൂയോർക്കിൻ്റെ അധ്യക്ഷനായിരുന്നു. 5 ഫെബ്രുവരി 1967 ഞായറാഴ്ച അങ്ങ് നൽകിയ പ്രഭാഷണം സ്വാമി വിവേകാനന്ദ എ ഗ്രേറ്റ് അവേക്കനർ ഓഫ് സോൾസ് എന്ന പ്രഭാഷണം നമുക്ക് കേൾക്കാം.
Sunday, February 5th, 1967. Swami Vivekananda, a great awakener of soul. Music by Jayanti Lahiri.
Let's have our prayer or meditation. Om Tejosi Tejomoyi Dehi Om Viramosi Viramoyi Dehi Om Balamosi Balamoyi Dehi Om Ujosi Ujomoyi Dehi. Thou art the embodiment of energy, give us energy. Thou art the embodiment of courage, give us courage, O Lord. Thou art the embodiment of strength, give us strength. Thou art the embodiment of spirituality, strengthen our spiritual life, O Lord. Peace unto us all. Those of you who have read Swami Vivekananda's life know that when Swami Vivekananda first met Ramakrishna at Dakshineshwar, at that time he was only 18 years of age. He came, Ramakrishna asked him to sing a song. He sang a song, listening to which Ramakrishna was in ecstatic condition and realized that he was the boy for whom he was waiting, on whom his mantle will fall. I am glad to announce Dr. Mr. Jayanti will sing that song. The substance of the song is, "My mind, let us go to our own abode. Why are you roaming about aimlessly like a stranger? Go up the path of truth, kindle the light of devotion, and with great care, keep the treasure, the merits of your good deeds." This was the substance of the song he sang, the first song he sang before Ramakrishna Jayanti. The subject of our talk this morning is Swami Vivekananda, a great awakener of souls. A Western disciple of Swami Vivekananda, for whom Swami Vivekananda had great appreciation, wrote in a reminiscence, "We cannot call accurately that Swami Vivekananda was great, for greatness is only a matter of comparison. When you say a person is great, that means he is greater than another person. But we cannot call Swami Vivekananda great in that sense, because he belonged to a class by himself. We cannot compare him with any other person. He belonged to a class by himself. He got knowledge from the source of all knowledge directly. It is true, Swami Vivekananda once said, if I were to have my education again, I would like to cultivate the power of concentration. When there is the power of concentration, it is a matter of collecting things. She got the knowledge from the fountainhead of all knowledge directly, not as a second-hand source. From that standpoint, you call him a versatile genius, which one would like to say. A genius is a person who goes far ahead of others and does a tremendous thing for humanity. But Swami Vivekananda was not going ahead of others. He reached the highest truth, and from that standpoint, he was giving his message and he was living his life. There are many things attributed or can be said about Swami Vivekananda. In America, he would be called, papers wrote that he was an orator by divine right. Someone would say that he was a cyclonic monk. He was a great scholar. He would not read from his own statement. He would not read line by line. He would read paragraph by paragraph or page by page. Kaleidoscopic way, he would say. He said, how many original thoughts are in the world? If you know these original thoughts, you can quickly, by reading the first line and the last line, you can know what is there in that line. So he would be studying in that way. Once in Lahore, he was a wandering monk who would bring books from an important library, and in 2 or 3 days he would return those books. The wandering monk, his dress might seem queer from ordinary standpoint. The librarian felt curious whether he read these books at all, and he was asking questions. He was amazed. He was not only give correct knowledge, but verbatim he could reproduce from those books. It is said once he read encyclopedia, 11 volumes or 10 volumes he read, and from that he could quote verbatim. In his wandering days, once he was the guest of an Indian officer, big officer. He was proud of his English knowledge, he had social position, he would not think that there is anything worth in wandering Swamis. He thought that way. But by the way, some talk came, and he, from the Pickwick papers, 2 or 3 pages, he quoted verbatim, and he was amazed. He thought this Swami has read these things many times. He read only one time, once in his college days or school days, and again 6 or 7 months back. His knowledge of history was so great. Some Western disciples went to Egypt with him, because he led us to the past of Egypt. His knowledge of history was very great. Of Indian history, he knew so much. He was a great thinker, as all you know. In India, many persons consider him as a great patriot. Once a terrorist young man told me, "Are you following in the line of Swami Vivekananda?" I said, "Why? What's the trouble?" He said, "Hey, Sam, you are not doing what Swami Vivekananda said. He talked for the independence of India, and you are not doing that." I could see his conviction was so great, he was going to challenge me in such a way. He did. And I said, "Look here, we are 500 monks. Some of them are at least intelligent, and some of them have lived with Swami Vivekananda. Do you mean to say that they do not understand what Swami Vivekananda was, and you know?" That is the thing. I admire his conviction here. So, in India, many persons consider Swami Vivekananda as a great patriot. He is called a patriot saint. It is true, Swami Vivekananda himself said, "My greatest weakness is my love for India." And one of his biographers said that thoughts of India would chase him as the thoughts of home chases a young monk who has renounced the world. In that way, he said, "My greatest weakness is love for India." He thought of India, he talked of India as a sleeping Leviathan, and a Leviathan awoke by his messages, by his influence. But all these things are true, but I would say, what is the important thing in his life? We forget that. The important thing in his life was he was a man of God. He realized the highest, not some spiritual experiences. From his own testimony, from the testimony of his teacher Ramakrishna, he realized the highest. From that standpoint, he would come down to our level, to lift us up to his height, as it were, or with him it was a reality. He has so much conviction that God is everywhere. He would believe that everyone could be lifted up to his highest level. He had that conviction. He said, "Open your eyes and see God." And from his own letters we find what was real message. In one of his letters he wrote, "My ideal can be put in two things. It is to preach unto mankind their divinity, and teach them how to manifest that in their everyday life." In the same letter he said, "Religions of the world have become lifeless mockeries. What the world wants, a character, the love, real, genuine love. Buddhas by hundreds are necessary. Can you sleep, great souls? I only say, awake, till the people do awake. That was his real thing in life. Other things are true as steps, but his real point was to lift up people to different stages to that highest level. Nothing short of that. Once a person was telling him about the beauty of a book which Swami Vivekananda himself very much liked, Imitation of Christ. And with respect to that book, he said, yes, the teachings are good, but I would like to know more, or I would like to know something from him, how Christ lived, how Christ behaved. That is more important than the discourses, than the teachings. This is what happens with all prophets. Their lives are of greater importance than their teachings. Their teachings are simply on the surface of a deep ocean. The deep ocean represents the life, and the teachings represent only the surface things. So he said, I would like to know accurately how Christ lived, how Christ behaved. This is true with Swami Vivekananda too. His life was greater than all his teachings. In Brooklyn, he gave a talk in 1895 in Brooklyn Ethical Society. The president of the society heard him in Chicago and he invited him. When he gave that lecture, the reporter, Brooklyn Standard, wrote, Swami Vivekananda was greater than his fame. Just imagine, even then, a press reporter could find, and he wrote it, and I read it this morning. I found it. And said Swami Vivekananda was greater than his fame. So we'd like to know how Swami Vivekananda lived. He was great, but we want to see. That will be source of greater inspiration to us. Did he have to struggle? How did he come to this conclusion that his message should be this? How did he live? How did he act? Did he laugh? Did he smile? In America, some persons would be astonished that Swami Vivekananda could laugh, could have humor. Swami Vivekananda said, why should you have a sour face if you want to be religious? But he was a normal, full-blooded human being. It is of great importance to us. We should see his teachings, and it is the legitimate thing to see the teachings of a teacher, of a prophet, in relation to his life. Then we can understand his teachings much better. Then we shall see Swami Vivekananda was really a awakener of souls. It is then Swami Vivekananda's life was completely in contrast with the life and surroundings of his teacher, Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was born in a remote village, born of an orthodox Brahmin family, a poor family. Swami Vivekananda was born in Calcutta in an aristocratic family, English educated. His father had some tendency towards Sufism too. Swami Vivekananda was a brilliant student, extremely good. To say that he was brilliant was speaking the least thing we can say. He was a great thinker. At that time he was very great thinker, and just corresponded to some important philosophers in Europe. In his early days he had great religious tendency. When he would be meditating, he would be absorbed in meditation. Once his meditation was so deep, then others, his parents or others, relations, had to break open the door to find Swami Vivekananda was in great meditation. But when he got the Western education, thanks he got that Western education, he became skeptical, he became agnostic. He wanted proof of the existence of God. That tormented him. Swami Vivekananda was great in every respect. His skepticism was so great that none of us can be more skeptical than he. Be assured. Don't be too proud of your skepticism that you have become modern. Religion should be modernized. No could be more skeptical than Swami Vivekananda. And skepticism with a sincere person has its torments. And he was passing through great torments. Going here and there, hither and thither, to find anyone who could speak of God as a direct experience. He was a member of the Brahma Samaj, and once he went to Devendranath Tagore, was highly respected, worthy of respect, father of Rabindranath Tagore. And I put to him directly that question, have you realized God? Devendranath Tagore simply said to him, you have a yogi's eyes. He did not answer the question directly. But in that stage of predicament, he came to contact Sri Ramakrishna, and he put him that question directly. After that song, that question, Swami Vivekananda said, yes, I see God more tangibly than I see the material things around. I can help you to realize God if you are ready for it. And at that time, after that song, when he was in ecstatic condition, and he realized this was the person for whom he was waiting, Swami Vivekananda came with 2 or 3 of his friends. He took Swami Vivekananda alone to a side room. Vivekananda thought that Ramakrishna wanted to give him some private instruction, but no. He closed the door and he said, why did you delay so much? I am waiting for you. He said, you are born for the good of the world. You have a message. You know, Narendranath was so, his name was Narendranath, extremely skeptical, rational. He thought, what is this? This man is mad. What does he say? I am the son of Vishwanath Dutt. He was 18 years of age. And he said, what does he say? All these things. He thought he was a monomaniac. And he came to Ramakrishna's own room afterwards, and he found Ramakrishna quite normal, so affectionate. From his talks, it seems he means what he says. He does not speak like ordinary persons, ordinary preachers, through imageries or from intellect, but he talks from his own experience. It is a dilemma to him. But he could not come to a real conclusion. In that conflict, he was going home, but Ramakrishna asked him to come again. And Vivekananda agreed. But when he went, he had no desire to come back. But because he gave the word, he thought he would come. He came, and that day Ramakrishna touched him, and he was going to an ecstatic condition. And Narendranath screamed, so what are you doing? He said, I have parents at home. Ramakrishna smiled and said, all that, stop. He stopped it. And it was, Vivekananda was amazed that he could at once stop it. Vivekananda felt very much humiliated, and that he thought he was very strong rationalist. A person could do that, have so much power over his mind. He felt really humiliated. Ramakrishna asked him again to come, and he had curiosity to meet him again. He came very much summoning up courage that this time he will not be able to do that. At that time when he came, there was a crowd of people in Dakshineshwar. Ramakrishna took him to another house of a devotee, which was open to him because he was a great devotee. He took him to the parlor of that house. And there Ramakrishna again touched him. This time Vivekananda could not control himself. He forgot, he was oblivious of the surroundings. And when he came down, he found Ramakrishna just rubbing the chest of Vivekananda. Just it went up and it came down. Narendra did not know what he was doing, what Ramakrishna was doing. Ramakrishna afterwards said that then I studied really whether my forebodings or my intuition was right. I asked him questions. I asked him certain questions in that state, and he gave the correct answer, and he was sure that Ramakrishna's intuition was correct. Vivekananda, for the first time, he found a person who was really a man of God, and he began to come to him. But there's a great conflict between him and the teacher and the master. Ramakrishna would be worshipping Kali the mother. Here Ramakrishna would say he would be talking with Kali the mother constantly. Vivekananda could not understand how he could that. He said directly that these are all hallucinations. These are figments of your strong imagination. Ramakrishna, like a child, will go to the temple and come back and say, fool, my Divine Mother said that my things are right. There ensued this conflict. For 6 years there was trouble going on, till Swami Vivekananda himself said, till I knew that he was not only holy, he was holiness itself. Those eyes were incapable of seeing anything evil in the world. His purity was purity itself. And through the directions of Ramakrishna and his great spiritual practice, whatever you do, you would surpass everyone. And then he had the highest spiritual experience. Once he was meditating. After that meditation, he was saying, where are my limbs? Where is my body? Those brother disciples who are near him got alarmed, went to Ramakrishna. That he is saying these things. Ramakrishna is all right, he has pestered me enough for all this, for this realization. From the testimony of Ramakrishna and from the testimony of Swami Vivekananda, we know that he had the highest realization. He had a very nice time, a spiritual shelter, but Ramakrishna passed away 6 years after he met, Vivekananda met him in 1886. He found a spiritual vacuum in him. By the way, Swami Vivekananda, he was a scholar, and he has confidence. Some persons would consider him a conceited. Ramakrishna would say that there is none like him. About Keshav, Ramakrishna say, if Keshav is one light, one power light, Swami Vivekananda is 18 power light. Others are fireflies, Vivekananda is like a sun. Others are lotus of 4 or 6 petals, Vivekananda is a lotus of 1,000 petals. But so great was his humility. He has got that confidence, and at the same time he has great humility. Sometimes he would protest loudly that people will think you crazy, you say all these things. Ramakrishna used to say that with a childlike attitude, what can I do? My mother has shown me. Even at that time Ramakrishna said he was a 1,000 petal lotus, just to figuratively say that how powerful he was. When some people who think Vivekananda was conceited, Ramakrishna said, no, it is not his conceit. It is self-confidence. He is conscious of his power. One can be conscious of his power. Power is dead. There's nothing wrong in saying when one knows one has the power. What's the use of hiding it is there? And even by trying to hide, you cannot hide. And Ramakrishna said, when he will come into contact with miseries, his confidence will melt into compassion in the same way. Here, he has brought up in an educational society, everything was favorable as a brilliant person. But when he will come into contact with misery, then all his confidence will melt down into compassion. And Swami Vivekananda had full cup of misery. Just before Ramakrishna passed away, his father died, and there was trouble in the family, some litigation. They were just extremely poor, face to face with literal starvation. Sometimes his brother could not eat, sister could not eat. Swami Vivekananda would go and come back, and he would say, just avoid. He himself would not eat. And he could not get a job. Swami Vivekananda could not get a job. He went to many places. And once he was tired and not getting any response from any quarter in the Calcutta Park, Maidan, Goranmat. He was dead tired. He was lying down. One of his friends sang a song, how kind God is. I said, leave up all these songs. God is kind. Just see the tragedy of his life. His life was had many dramatic elements. Romarola said, his life is a veritable epic, and Ramakrishna's life is legendary. His life, everything is dramatic. And he came to such a condition, he could not say, hear the song, God is all kind. And then he was coming to Ramakrishna, and at that time he had some realization. In any case, but what about after Ramakrishna's passing away? Here, one thing important, Vivekananda was a rationalist. But when there are troubles of the mind, he could not wrestle with those things. He confessed to one of his friends, college friends, Brajendranath Chil, a great scholar. Brajendranath Chil taught Vivekananda, said to him, the problem of life can be solved if we know, go rationally. And if you know there is reason within us, there is universal reason. When this reason becomes identified with the universal reason, all troubles are over. For the time being, he believed in these things. And afterwards he said, cold, bloodless, pale reason does not help us in the hours of tribulation and temptation. We wanted a flesh and blood reality. That was his, and he found a help was flesh and blood in reality. His friend Brajendranath Chil was amazed. A person like Swami Vivekananda would be the follower of a teacher, and he had no knowledge, had no any book learning. It was amazed, but Vivekananda found it. But when the teacher gone away, he was in a great void. In that state, in a restless condition, to fill up that gap, would go from place to place as a wandering monk. That was a great experience. From Himalayan to Cape Comorin, and throughout the length and breadth of India. Sometimes he would be the guest of a Maharaja and treated in princely style. Sometimes he would be the guest of an untouchable. Once it happened, for 2 or 3 days he had no food, and went to a place, became the guest of an untouchable. And there people would be coming, and people would ask questions and so on. But nobody inquired whether Vivekananda had eaten or not. That his host then was anxious, and he has not eaten. For 2 or 3 days he did not eat. And he was so kind to him. And he knew what real India was. He knew Indian history. His historical insight was very, very great. He knew Sanskrit. what scriptures are he knew, not only like a scholar. Through his realization, he could enter into the spirit of scriptures, and he knew where the heart of India lay. He saw the richest person, he saw the poorest person, and there he knew what real India was. I wonder if anybody had known India so much. Mahatma Gandhi had great hold over the masses. The thousands of millions of persons would come. But he did not live with the untouchables as their guests. He did not, and he did not live as the guest of Maharaj in that way. He saw the pilgrims, he saw the monks, and he saw the devastating poverty and suffering of India. He saw the glory of India. He saw the weakness of India. Glory, that he was not like a Western educated person who does not know Sanskrit, or had an idea that there's nothing in ancient religion or all these things. He knew what it was. He had his realization. He had seen person was the embodiment of scriptures, was the embodiment of Vedanta, not only of Vedanta, of all religions. So that he was sure, and with his knowledge of Sanskrit, he knew scriptures very well. He saw the glory of India, he saw the weakness of weakness of India. He was in a miserable condition. His confidence melted into compassion. So great was his compassion. In a letter he wrote to educated Indians on his way to America. I call every educated Indian a traitor for being educated at the cost of the poor people. It doesn't do anything for them. I could see he was talking with so much feeling, and what to do. That became the burden of his song of misery. And in Cape Comorin, he said, that the last point of India, he was thinking, there are so many monks in India. If they could be directed to do something for the poverty of India, it would be a great thing. That was the great load over his shoulder. Before coming to this country, in Mount Abu, he met two of his important brother disciples. And to them he said, brothers, I do not know what does your religion say. I find my heart has become so big, I can embrace the whole of humanity. That is my religion. That is what I found. And in that state, circumstances forced him to come to America. It was mere circumstances. Some young men of Madras who are devoted to him, they inspired him to come to America. And he did not come as a delegate. In the Parliament of Religions, delegates came from all over the world. Brahmasam was represented, Theosophy was represented, but not Hinduism. He was Swami Vivekananda at that time was 30. Those who have read the details, you know how chance on the night before the Parliament of Religion, he spent in a station wagon in the Chicago station. And in the morning he thought, like in India, he could beg his food. He went from place to place and he was rejected. Tired, he sat on the street corner. From the other side of the street, one respectable looking lady came and asked him, are you a delegate to Parliament of Religion? And she saw her in that condition. And she brought to him his house, took care of him, and it was she who took him to the Parliament of Religion to make him a delegate. And he became a delegate. On that very day, just so dramatic, his previous night he slept in a station wagon on the railroad. Dirty, and so people would not allow him to go to their houses. And that very day, in the evening, he gave a speech which made him world famous. And the papers, at that time papers were so much prejudiced against India. Not only papers, people were so much prejudiced against India, benighted country, the country of heathens, which is a rich field for the missionaries to go and convert. And on that day, a representative of Hinduism, only 30 years of age, before a vast gathering, where there are many speakers of international reputation, theologians, preachers, and he gave that speech, and that speech hit the line. And that was he was acclaimed that his was the most powerful speech. It is not the question of powerful speech. They thought it was powerful. It is something more. It was something more. Here comes in. What was the power behind it? It was not his intellect. It was not his bright eyes. It was not his magnetic personality. It is not. There is not a single person there who could speak from direct experience. Here is one who could speak from direct experience. How can you resist such things? The world has not gone so bad. Even the world has gone, suppose the world has gone so bad, truth has not gone bad. Truth has its power always. How can you resist? And so by one speech he became famous. Americans were just all were amazed. And the papers were writing. Said it is good to see, even some papers say, after listening to him, we think how foolish it is to send missionaries to that learned country. Just think. He raised the prestige of India. He showed to people what Hinduism was. Swami Vivekananda on that day, it is said, he wept bitterly. He said, my privacy is gone. No longer I can live my private wandering monk. Wherever he was going, people will go. Press reporters would write what Swami Vivekananda ate, how he behaved. One paper wrote, Swami Vivekananda's breakfast consists of bread and butter, thickly sprinkled with pepper. So all these things, that's the thing. And people, then he was in much demand. He went from place to place. He touched many lives and started the Vedanta social movement. Then when he went and preached in London also made a great star. Went to India. In India, he was given a great ovation. From America, he was writing to India. Many letters he wrote, but India was in his mind. And when in India there was a great ovation given to him, what did he speak there? He spoke of Vedanta, but how to bring Vedanta to the service of everyday life. How Vedanta could raise India from this state. And how strong was his language. He changed the face of India. If I am not exaggerating, I don't think I am exaggerating. By writing 50 letters and giving 20 or 25 lectures in India when he went. The letters are so powerful. And in the speeches and in conversation, he was so strong. With all his love for India, he would write and he would say, is there any religion in India? Whole of India, in one letter he said, whole of Malabar has become a lunatic asylum where the untouchables are treated so badly. In one of his letters, if I am quoting rightly, he said, whole of India is a lunatic asylum. For 5,000 years, you are discussing the momentous question whether you will eat with the right hand or with the left hand. Is there any religion in India? With all his love for India, which is all his love for his, which is all his pride for spiritual inheritance, and in that way, he was just whipping the whole nation as it were. And he came to America again, and he met with people, gave instruction, influenced people, and he passed away in the 1902 at the age of 39. Many persons feel aggrieved, feel sorry. Swami Vivekananda passed, he was so young, he was 39. He worked barely 6 years. You see, he was a wandering monk. At the age of 30, he gave the speech. He passed away at the age of 39. Last 2 or 3 years he was sick. But he did not work more than 6 years. But how tremendous the work he did. Some person, young man, was speaking against the sages of India. In India, Swami Vivekananda said, well, if you could think like the sages, in half an hour we would be reduced to ashes. You talk against the sages that they could think so intensely, I put it clumsily. I said in half an hour you would be reduced to ashes if you make an attempt to think that way, with that intensity. So I wonder, Swami Vivekananda, how, with what intensity he could think, with what intensity he could work. He changed the outlook of India. It seems exaggerated, but it is not so. History indicates he passed away in 1902. In 1905 became the political awakening. Swami Vivekananda said, touch the soul of India, which is religion, and India will awake. He was not simply the awakener of souls of men. He was the awakener of the soul of a country. At that time he said, touch the soul of India, which is religion. And he said, I have nothing to do with politics. With all his love for India's independence, I said, I deal with the soul of India. And there was political trouble from 1905. And afterwards, his influence began to spread in different directions. When a flood tide comes through a river, limited by 2 banks, we can see the flood water is coming. But when the flood water just overreach the banks of the river, we do not see how the water is spreading. In the same way, one can see in so many directions Swami Vivekananda's influence was going. But the greatest direction was he brought back the self-confidence of the nation. At that time, in the subject nation, all hope lost, simply believing in destiny and fate. And he found out one point in which India was very, very strong. He said in one of his addresses, which sent to Madras from Chicago Parliament, from America, there was an address given to him because of his success. In that reply he wrote, shall India die, then from the world, real religion will be gone. So with all his faith in all religions, he said, shall India die, then from the world all religion will go. What is religion? About religion here, that was his idea at that time in one of his letters. What is your idea of God? God is a terror, or a healing power, or a vibration, and so on. And what is religion? It is bigotry. He said, I'm just quoting it. Christianity holds its ground only on patriotism. What is real religion? You have known the truth, you cannot be bigoted. You cannot be say only my religion is true. If you know the truth, you can see the truth everywhere. If you say that my religion only truth, that indicates you do not know the real religion. You have not realized truth. 2 plus 2 will make 4 everywhere. If somebody says it is only true in my country or his country, he does not know mathematics. In Indian religion says that all religions are true. And if learn from Ramakrishna how all the paths lead to the same goal, that's a saving factor. And what is most important thing in life, from his own experiences he knew, real peace can be had when only you get when you realize the truth. That is the important thing. That has been India doing for ages. He said what India was doing for ages. In every century, India has brought forth some persons who have seen truth face to face, and that is really the heart of India. He brought many changes, and he was very constructive. He appealed to the whole man, not in a piecemeal way. Just to say one thing, Mahatma Gandhi's heydays, he said that spinning wheel will bring independence to India. One of his ideas was to identify with the poor. Here is poor, one should take to spinning wheel. He believed in cottage industry, and not in ordinary industry. Tagore objected to it. He said, how can spinning wheel will bring independence to India? He's objected to it. I'm just quoting him, not as a comparison. Some persons wrote to Tagore, you criticize everything. Mahatma Gandhi is doing things, you criticize him. What is your constructive idea? Tagore said. It was strange. Tagore did not believe everything Vivekananda said, his ways of doing. But he wrote in Bengali in his beautiful style, if you want constructive idea, go to Swami Vivekananda. He did not appeal to the finger of a man. He appealed to the whole man. That is the important thing. Swami Vivekananda did not appeal to particular aspect. He did not take part in politics. But more than politics he was doing, he was touching the life of soul of India. So Tagore said he appealed to the whole of man. Swami Vivekananda appealed to the whole of man. Now come to the thing. What was the real message of Swami Vivekananda? What he really was? It is interesting, and it is good also. Everyone will read the message of Swami Vivekananda in his own way. But if you read his whole life carefully, then you find what his real message was. His message was dealing the soul of people, to lift up humanity to the level where one could see truth face to face. He said in one of his lectures, my idea is the ideal of man is to find out his divinity and help others to become divine. He gave a formula, slogan, be and make. He said, man's problems fundamentally is spiritual, not political, nor social, nor economic. Man is not an economic being. Man is not an economic unit. Man is not a political being. Man has a soul. But the problem fundamentally spiritual. The trouble of the world goes on. Why? Man does not know what he really is. Swami Vivekananda knew what man is. Therefore he emphasized that. He would say man is divine. If man knows how great he is, if a man can stand on the majesty of his soul, if a man knows his real nature, he can never be afraid. He can never worry. He can never think he's a sinner. In Chicago Parliament of Religion, talking on Hinduism, he said boldly about facing mostly Christian audience before all church dignitaries. Fundamental thing is that it is a sin to call a man sinner. Ye divinities on earth, it's a sin to call a man sinner. That was his thing. That was the burden of his misery as it was. He said to fear is a great sin. Why should God be a terror? If there is God, why should man be a sinner? He did not mean that man does not make mistakes. He said, man is divine. If there were a devil, it would be our duty to see in him not devil, but God. Devil is outer garb, but inside was the divinity. He saw with his eyes as a realization that everyone is divine. He could not brook the idea that anybody should think lowly of himself, or anybody think that anybody is a sinner. What was message on the spiritual level? He said, man is potentially divine. The goal is to realize the divinity through different paths: path of intellectual inquiry, path of concentration, path of love, path of knowledge, and a path of unselfish work. But more than that, it was as it a side issues. Every man is divine. As such, look upon everyone as the embodiment of divinity. And try to manifest that every moment in your life. And he had great compassion for all, as I said. Therefore, you serve people. Unselfishness is God. Selfishness is the world. Unselfishly serve all human beings. That was his original idea. Previously, they would say do works as a matter of self-purification. Gita would say, Shankaracharya would say. They do works with non-attachment. Through that you will get your heart purified. Then truth will dawn on you. Swami Vivekananda said it directly. See, everyone is an embodiment of God, image of God. Serve everyone with that spirit. Or let all your works be worship. Worship in the sense, through all your actions, you come into contact with people, consider them as embodiment of human being. He in a letter, I think he wrote to the Maharaja of Mysore, life is short, vanities of life are transient. They only live who live for others. Others are more dead than alive. That is what he emphasized, even as a matter of spiritual practice, to do works as a form of worship, to treat all human beings as the image of God. One of his disciples, monastic disciples, afterwards he became the president of the organization. He wrote what he heard from Swami Vivekananda when Swami Vivekananda was taking a class on Gita. As I was reading the Gita, he said, he first came on the verse what Sri Krishna says to Arjuna, don't yield to unmanliness, that does not behove thee. It does not become thee. Give up this faint-heartedness. Swami Vivekananda became, his disciple says, enthusiastic like a prophet, talking fiery words. What is the source of strength? The source of strength is everyone is Brahman. Everyone is God in disguise. And when you know that, you cannot be faint-hearted. You cannot yield to unmanliness. He was speaking that. Then he came. In that case, you cannot hate anyone. In everyone there is God. You cannot hate even the most vicious person. His disciple writes, I read yesterday and today also. He says, when he said, you cannot hate even the vicious person, there was so much compassion in his face that it radiated through 100 channels as it were. His face was brimful of compassion. He said, even now, after 16 years or so, so many years, even if I remember his face, full of compassion. In Swami Vivekananda, there were 3 grades. That was, these 3 things were his trinity: his strength, his compassion, and his spiritual fire. You see, in explaining these things, 2 things have come out, or 3 things have come out: his strength, and this compassion for all, and his spiritual fire. It is not the question of his speaking. It is not the question of his spoken words. The important thing, how you infused the courage to others, how you could infuse spiritual courage to others, how you could change lives in a miraculous way as it were. That is the important thing. His words were powerful, not because it spoke loudly, but there's fire inside. Fire was there. It is a prophet is known, but the power he can infuse into others. Swami Vivekananda said that it is not the person. I would not make any distinction between good and evil, to bring out the power within a person. His disciples, in Madras, were not very extraordinary. I remember, it's a personal thing, I was editing the letters of Swami Vivekananda. Chronological I was putting. I was in Mayavati in my quiet room looking at the Himalaya. And when I was editing, I was not editing as a devotee, I am editing it for the public. I must see what things are going on. Reading his life, I find he's in despair, in so many difficulties. All of a sudden, he writes a letter to one of his Madras disciples. 50 centuries are looking at you. I said, I remember, even now, I stopped my pen, I stood. What is it? How could he see? His disciples are not very extraordinary to judge from human standard. But his confidence, he could give so much courage to them. They did that. They did wonders. So Swami Vivekananda could do that. That was his real greatness. And how it changed his life. To give some illustration. While wandering, he was a wandering monk. At that time, Swami Vivekananda was not very great. Like any other wandering monk, it might only had brighter eyes, or bright dazzling eyes. He was the guest. He was waiting at the station in Hathras. That's an important station. It was junction station. A station might be an important position at that time. He saw a Swami sitting under a tree, and he came to him, said, "Can I offer you food?" Swami Vivekananda agreed. And he came and stayed with him for 6 or 7 days. His whole outlook changed. He wanted to be a monk with him. Swami Vivekananda said, how can you become a monk? Sometimes I beg my food, sometimes I do not get my food. Because yes, I can do that. And he went, he says, I can beg my food. From the porters, he was begging his food. Just imagine with his position, at that time he had not given up that position. He would give that up. But he went, literally went and begged food from the porters. And how he could change life. He was one of his important disciples. After Swami Vivekananda so compassionate, he said. Once they were traveling to a teacher and the disciple. The disciple was sick, and he carried his baggage on his shoulder, the baggage of the disciple on his shoulder. In that baggage there was his shoes, and with a piteous way he would be saying, he carried my shoes over his shoulder. But the important thing, how he changed that life. It is not single instance in America. You have, I think many of you have heard the name of Madame Calvé, great singer. He was extremely famous, but inside was hollow and disturbed. Some person asked her to see Swami Vivekananda. She came for an interview, and those who are just showed her just to go there. You need not ask any question. Perhaps Swami Vivekananda was meditating, so don't disturb him. Sit there. Swami Vivekananda was there, and he looked at her. He said, "What a troublesome atmosphere about you. Be calm. That is essential." And he began to speak of her past, of her troubles. Swami Vivekananda did not indulge in miraculous things. But certain things when he sees, perhaps it was necessary, he said. And she said, "Did you hear from anybody?" He said, "Has one to hear from anybody? Because I read in you as I see, as I read in an open book." He spoke of our past, and he said, "All my troubles were gone." And she said, fortunately, she has a right understanding. She said, he did not do it by any act of hypnotism or mesmerism. He did it by the strength of his character and the purity and the purity and intensity of his purpose. He carried conviction. She said, Swami Vivekananda has the capacity of changing chaotic thoughts into peaceful acquiescence. She speaks from a personal experience. She said, his influence, spiritual influence on me was profound. He opened up new horizons for me. That was with relation to some important person, something to come just opposite. They were going to Egypt. They were in Cairo. Madame Calvé was there, Miss MacLeod and some other persons were there. Through mistake, they lost the way. They were going to some dirty part of the city. The dirty buildings were dirty, and his disciples or devotees wanted to take him to other way because these are dirty. But there were in the dirty row, there were women, half-clad women, some looking to the window, some sitting in the benches. They wanted to take Swami Vivekananda away from there, but anyhow Swami Vivekananda went there. He looked at them and he said, "Poor children, poor creatures, they put their divinity in their beauty, and the result is this." One person, one lady put arms or hands to close her eyes. One person just touched the hem of his robe and in Spanish said, "He's a man of God." Just see, they could feel, and Swami Vivekananda was weeping to see their condition. To give another illustration, Swami Vivekananda gave some lectures in Detroit. Many attended those lectures, but there was one person who was impressed by his lecture. That winter she did not want to come to any lectures. She had heard many lectures, but she came. But she was extremely impressed by that lecture, but she did not see him. After 2 years, consciousness came. She saw an important person. She was eager to know whether she could see him again. All of a sudden she learned that Swami Vivekananda was here. He was in Thousand Island Park. She and one of her friends, another lady, she went a few hundred miles to go to Thousand Island Park, where Swami Vivekananda lived. It was evening, it was night, it was raining. One has to go up the hill. In rains, they went, got a light, and they were afraid. They had come as unannounced. They will be intruding on his privacy. And they were thinking, at least one of them, what she would say just in. But when they reached the hall and saw Swami Vivekananda, particularly one, she said, I have come to you in the same spirit with which I would have gone to Christ had he been alive today. Just imagine, at once a real thing is come. She heard few lectures and it made so much impression on her. She went and said these things. Swami Vivekananda said, I wish I had the power of Christ. But he had the power of Christ. Her life was changed completely. After Swami Vivekananda said, is she not extremely pure? She was extremely pure. Some of you might have read her writing, Sister Christine. That is the way he was changing life. But Swami Vivekananda came into contact with miseries too. He came into contact with persons whose problems were very great. But Swami Vivekananda was great in his mood. He has a strength, compassion, and spiritual fire in everything. In one of his letters, he wrote a prayer. Perhaps someone was in great difficulty. He said, stick to God. Who cares how the body goes? Now, what happens to the body or in everything? Say, to terrors of evil, say, my God, my Lord. Through all the evils under the sun, say, my God, my Lord. Through pangs of death, say, my God, my Lord. I belong to Thee. Thou art here, I see it. Thou art with me, I feel it. I belong to Thee. Thou art mine. Life is a great chance. Thou like to have pleasures of the world. The Lord is full of infinite bliss. If I are to seek anything, seek for the highest. If I are to aim at anything, aim at the highest, and thou shalt reach it. Even in times of in times of difficulties, or even when a person was in difficulty, his message was so uplifting. To Sister Nivedita he gave a prayer, and after saying the prayer said, prayer to Divine Mother. He said, when praying, don't cringe before her. Make her listen to you. That's if you have real faith, then you can say, why should you be cringing before God? I said, don't cringe before her. Make her listen to you. Swami Vivekananda could make her listen to his prayer or wish. Such was Swami Vivekananda. But it is astonishing to know he lived in the modern age. He lived in this century. He was 2 years. Is it not an astonishing thing, glorious thing? Some persons say that he died too young, but Swami Vivekananda gave the answer in his letters before he died. I will incessantly work until I die. Even after death, I shall not cease to work. I shall not cease to work unless everyone becomes one with the divine. In one of his letters he was saying, it was not simply exhortation, it was real spirit. A disciple of Swami Vivekananda, about whom I said about his Gita, he wrote, one Swami Vivekananda telling them, there is a time when I will be thinking of my mukti, liberation from the bondage of matter. For that I tried, for that I thought I would give up my life if I do not get the liberation. Now I do not think that way. I think of the liberation, spiritual liberation of every individual in the under the sun. His disciple wrote a note in that. He said, perhaps he was sure of his liberation. He has got his liberation, so he was talking that way. But nevertheless, just see, this was a man, and this person lived in this age. We know them. There are persons who saw them. The same fire of Swami Vivekananda lives in his books, in his writing. If you read them, you find that fire is still embedded there. In one of the Vedanta school, it is said, you can get your instruction from a guru, but you can get also from the scriptures. You read the Upanishad and from them get your direction for meditation. It's a different school. Swami Vivekananda lived this glorious life living for others. Entirely he lived for others. But he is away, but his spirit is working surely. After his passing away, how people are dedicating their lives for him, in how many directions he is influencing people. But he is away, but his message is in the scriptures. If you read them carefully, you will find there is liquid fire, sparkle of fire, even in this teaching. So he is still alive, his influence is still pervading. He was the awakener of soul, not in the past tense, in the present tense too. Now Srimati, Dr. Mrs. Joy Lahiri will sing a song composed by Swami Vivekananda. It was not a song, it was a poem. Afterwards it was turned into song. A poem on Samadhi, which gives Swami Vivekananda's real experience. And the substance of the song is, first, when I was meditating, all the sun and the moon and the stars seem like shadows moving in the infinite space. Then my mind is withdrawn. The thoughts of the world come like a distant echo into my mind on the current of I-ness. That also has faded away. Only I-ness remains. And afterwards, I-ness has vanished. The void has become one with the void. What remains? Only one who has experienced it, one knows. That's the bliss which cannot be explained in words. This is the song Jayanti will sing.
ॐ जननीं शारदां देवीं रामकृष्णं जगद्गुरुं पादपद्मे तयो श्रुत्वा പ്രണമാമി മുഹുർമുഹുഃ. എല്ലാവർക്കും എൻ്റെ ഹാർദമായ നമസ്കാരങ്ങൾ. നമ്മളിപ്പോൾ കേട്ടുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത് ഭഗവാൻ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണദേവൻ്റെ സന്യാസി ശിഷ്യനായ മാനസപുത്രനായ ബ്രഹ്മാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ ശിഷ്യൻ പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ 1967 ഫെബ്രുവരി 5 ന്യൂയോർക്ക് നഗരത്തിൽ വെച്ച് വേദാന്ത സൊസൈറ്റി ഓഫ് ന്യൂയോർക്കിൽ നടത്തിയ പ്രഭാഷണമാണ്. പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ ന്യൂയോർക്ക് പോകുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് പ്രബുദ്ധ ഭാരത എന്ന് അറിയപ്പെടുന്ന ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മാസികയുടെ പത്രാധിപരായിരുന്നു. വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ തുടങ്ങിയ ആ ഇംഗ്ലീഷ് മാസികയുടെ പത്രാധിപനായിരുന്നു. സ്വാമിജി പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ ജീവിതത്തിനെക്കുറിച്ചും വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ എങ്ങനെ രാമകൃഷ്ണദേവനെ കണ്ടുമുട്ടി എന്നതിനെക്കുറിച്ചും ഭാരത സംസ്കാര ആത്മീയ പാരമ്പര്യത്തിനെ ലോകത്തിൻ്റെ മുന്നിൽ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ എങ്ങനെ അവതരിപ്പിച്ചു എന്നുള്ളതിനെക്കുറിച്ചും വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമി ഇന്നും ശരീരത്തിൽ ഇല്ലെങ്കിലും വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ തന്നെ ആത്മീയ ശക്തി, വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ ആത്മീയ ശക്തി ഇന്നും പ്രവർത്തിച്ചുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നു. ഈ പ്രപഞ്ചത്തിലുള്ള ഓരോ ജീവിയും ഞാൻ ബ്രഹ്മനാണ് എന്ന് അറിയുന്നവരെ അതങ്ങനെ തന്നെ ആകും എന്ന് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ തന്നെ പറഞ്ഞു. അതിനൊക്കെ കുറിച്ച് നമുക്ക് പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ ഇവിടെ പറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്നു. അങ്ങയുടെ ജീവിതം പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ ഒരു ജീവിതം അന്നത്തെ കാലത്ത് ന്യൂയോർക്ക് നഗരത്തിൽ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന ബൗദ്ധിക മേഖലയിലും സാമൂഹ്യ മേഖലയിലും അത്രയന്തിന് കലാരംഗത്തും പ്രവർത്തിച്ച ഒട്ടേറെ ആൾക്കാരിനെ, പിന്നീട് അവരൊക്കെ പ്രശസ്തരായി, അവരിനെയൊക്കെ അങ്ങേയറ്റം സ്വാധീനിച്ച ഒരു ജീവിതമായിരുന്നു. ആ സ്വാമിജിയുടെ ജീവിതത്തിന് നമ്മളൊക്കെ എല്ലാം കൃതജ്ഞരാണ്. സ്വാമിജി പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യം, പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറഞ്ഞ കാര്യം, അതിൽ നിന്ന് ചില കാര്യങ്ങളെ നമ്മൾ ഒന്നും കൂടി വിശദമായി കാണാം. വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ വന്ന് നമുക്ക് പറഞ്ഞു തന്നത്, റിലിജൻസ് ഓഫ് ദ വേൾഡ് ഹാവ് ബിക്കം മോക്കറീസ്, ലൈഫ്ലെസ് മോക്കറീസ്. ലോകത്തിലുള്ള മത സമ്പ്രദായങ്ങളൊക്കെ ജീവനില്ലാത്ത പരിഹാസങ്ങളായി തീർന്നിരിക്കുന്നു എന്നാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇന്നും 2021 കൊറോണ എന്നുള്ള മഹാമാരിയോട് നമ്മൾ സംഗ്രാമം ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ വേളയിലും അതങ്ങനെ തന്നെയാണ്. ഇന്നും ആത്മീയ ജീവിതം, മതജീവിതം എന്നൊക്കെ നമ്മൾ പറയുമ്പോൾ, അങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ വിചാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ, ഒരു പ്രത്യേക രീതിയിൽ വസ്ത്രം ധരിക്കുന്നതും പ്രത്യേക ഭക്ഷണം കഴിക്കുന്നതുമാണ് ആത്മീയ ജീവിതം എന്നുള്ളതാണ് നമ്മുടെ തിരിച്ചറിവ്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ കുറേ പൂജാ കർമ്മങ്ങൾ ചെയ്യുന്നതും ആചാര അനുഷ്ഠാനങ്ങൾ നിർവഹിക്കുന്നതും പല സ്ഥലങ്ങളിൽ തീർത്ഥാടനം നടത്തുന്നതും പല മതഗ്രന്ഥങ്ങളെ വായിക്കുന്നതും അതിനെ പഠിപ്പിച്ചു കൊടുക്കുന്നതുമൊക്കെയാണ് നമ്മൾ ആത്മീയ ജീവിതമായിട്ട് കാണുന്നത്. എന്നാൽ അതല്ല ആത്മീയ ജീവിതം. ആത്മീയ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ഒരുപക്ഷെ ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ ഉണ്ടാവാം. പക്ഷെ അതൊക്കെ എത്ര ഉണ്ടായിട്ടും നമ്മൾ നേരിട്ട് നമ്മുടെ യഥാർത്ഥ രൂപത്തിനെ, അതിനെ ഭഗവാൻ എന്ന് പറയാം, വേറെ ഏതെങ്കിലും ഒരു പേരുകൊണ്ട് അതിനെ വിശേഷിപ്പിക്കാം, ആ യഥാർത്ഥ രൂപത്തിനെ നമ്മൾ കണ്ടില്ലെങ്കിൽ അത് ഒരിക്കലും ആത്മീയ ജീവിതമാകുന്നില്ല. എത്ര തന്നെ ആത്മീയ അറിവ് ഉണ്ടായിട്ടും, അതായത് ആത്മീയ ഗ്രന്ഥങ്ങളുടെയും ആത്മീയ കാര്യങ്ങളുടെയും അറിവുണ്ടായിട്ടും തൻ്റെ അഹങ്കാരത്തിനെ ഉപേക്ഷിക്കാനോ തൻ്റെ ഈ ക്ഷുദ്രമായിരിക്കുന്ന ശരീരം, മനസ്സ്, പ്രാണൻ എന്നുള്ള ഈ കാര്യങ്ങളുടെ കൂട്ടായ്മനെ ഉപേക്ഷിക്കാനോ കരുത്തില്ലാത്ത ഒരു വ്യക്തി ഒരിക്കലും ആത്മീയ വ്യക്തി ആകാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഇന്ന് നമ്മൾ സമൂഹത്തിൽ വെച്ച് കാണുന്ന വലിയ ഒരു പ്രശ്നം അത് വകതിരിവ്, ഭേദം, ഭിന്നത കാണുന്ന പ്രശ്നമാണ്. ഭാഷ എന്നുള്ള കാരണത്തുകൊണ്ട്, മതം എന്നുള്ള അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ, സാമ്പത്തിക ശേഷി എന്നുള്ള അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ആരുടെ രാജ്യം എന്താണ് എന്നുള്ള അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ, ഭാഷയുടെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ, വിദ്യാഭ്യാസത്തിൻ്റെ അടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ എന്നിങ്ങനെ നമുക്ക് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ട് പോകാം. മനുഷ്യ സമൂഹത്തിൽ പല കാരണങ്ങളാണ് ആവിഷ്കരിച്ചിരിക്കുന്നത് ഒരു മനുഷ്യനെ വേറൊരു മനുഷ്യനിൽ നിന്ന് വേർതിരിക്കാൻ വേണ്ടി. അപ്പോൾ ഈ ഭിന്നതകൾ, ഇതിനെ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളെ കുറിച്ച് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഖേദകരമായ ഒരു വിഷയം, ഒരു മലയാളി വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളെ കാണുമ്പോൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ അങ്ങയുടെ കാര്യങ്ങൾ സംസാരിക്കുമ്പോൾ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറഞ്ഞ എല്ലാം മറന്ന് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ കേരളത്തിനെ കുറിച്ച് കേരളം ഒരു ഭ്രാന്താലയം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞത് മാത്രം ഓർക്കുന്നു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. കാരണം വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ എന്തുകൊണ്ടത് പറഞ്ഞു എന്നുള്ളത് നമ്മൾ ഓർക്കുന്നില്ല. മനുഷ്യൻ ഭിന്നതയിൽ നിന്ന് മാറി അഭിന്നമായ ആ അദ്വൈത തത്വത്തിലേക്ക് എത്തിച്ചേരണം, മനുഷ്യൻ്റെ ബോധം അവിടെ എത്തണം എന്നുള്ള കാരണം കൊണ്ടാണ് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമി ഇത് പറഞ്ഞത്. ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ വേറൊരു മനുഷ്യനെ പല കാരണങ്ങൾ കൊണ്ടും വേർതിരിക്കുമ്പോൾ, മാറ്റിവെക്കുമ്പോൾ, തള്ളി പറയുമ്പോഴൊക്കെ അവിടെ നമുക്ക് നഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നത് ഞാൻ മാത്രമല്ല, ഈ പ്രപഞ്ചം തന്നെ ആ ഒരു അദ്വൈതമായ, ഉപമിക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്ത, നിരുപമായ ബ്രഹ്മൻ്റെ വെളിപ്പാടാണ് എന്നുള്ള ബോധമാണ് നമുക്ക് അപ്പോൾ നഷ്ടപ്പെടുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഇന്ന് കൊറോണ കൊണ്ട് ഈ ലോകം മുഴുവൻ ആ അദൃശ്യമായ ശത്രുവിനെ എതിർത്ത് പോരാടാൻ വേണ്ടി, യുദ്ധം ചെയ്യാൻ വേണ്ടി ലോകം മുഴുവൻ ഒന്നായിരുന്നിരിക്കുന്ന ഈ വേളയിലും നമ്മൾ മനുഷ്യനിൽ നിന്ന് മനുഷ്യനെ വേർതിരിക്കാൻ പല കാരണങ്ങൾ കണ്ടെത്തിയിരിക്കുന്നു. ഖേദകരമായ ഒരു വിഷയം, അതിൽ കൊറോണവും ഒരു കാരണമായിരിക്കുന്നു. കഴിഞ്ഞ വർഷം നടന്ന പല സംഭവങ്ങളിൽ ഒരാൾക്ക് കൊറോണ കിട്ടിയാൽ ആ വ്യക്തിയുടെ ബന്ധുക്കൾ പോലും, ആ വ്യക്തിയുടെ കുടുംബത്തിലുള്ള അംഗങ്ങൾ പോലും ആ വ്യക്തിയെ തീരെ ഉപേക്ഷിച്ചു എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. നമ്മുടെ രാജ്യം എമ്പാടും പല സംസ്ഥാനങ്ങളിൽ നിന്ന്, പല ജില്ലകളിൽ നിന്ന് കിട്ടിയ ഒരു ദുഃഖം കൊടുക്കുന്ന, വിഷമിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ഒരു വാർത്തയാണത്. എനിക്ക് തന്നെ വ്യക്തിപരമായി അറിയുന്ന ചില ആൾക്കാർ അനുഭവിച്ച ഒരു കാര്യമാണിത്. കൊറോണ വന്നു എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ അവരുടെ ഭാര്യയും മക്കളും തന്നെ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ഭർത്താവും മക്കളും തന്നെ അവരെ ഉപേക്ഷിക്കുന്നു. അവരെ ഹോസ്പിറ്റലിൽ പോയി കാണുന്നില്ല, കാരണം അത് പകരും എന്നുള്ള ആ പേടി കൊണ്ട്. ഈ പേടി ബൃഹദാരണ്യക ഉപനിഷത്തിൽ പറയുന്ന പോലെ ദ്വിതീയാത് വൈ ഭയം ഭവതി, രണ്ടാമത്തതൊന്നുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ള ബോധം കൊണ്ടാണ് നമുക്ക് പേടി മാത്രമല്ല, ഭയം മാത്രമല്ല, മനസ്സിൻ്റെ എല്ലാ വികാരങ്ങളും ഉണ്ടാകുന്നത്. ഈ പേടി കൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ എന്താണ് നേടാൻ പോകുന്നത്? അപ്പോൾ പേടി കൊണ്ട് നമ്മളൊന്നും നേടുന്നില്ല. നമ്മൾ പേടി കൊണ്ട് കളയാണ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. എന്താണ് നമ്മൾ കളയുന്നത്? നമ്മുടെ യഥാർത്ഥ സ്വരൂപത്തിൻ്റെ ബോധമാണ് നമ്മൾ കളയുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ബോധം നമ്മൾ കളയുന്നു. ഈ പേടി കൊണ്ട് നമ്മൾ ആ ബോധം കളയുന്നു, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പേടി കൊണ്ട് ആ ബോധം നമുക്ക് കിട്ടാനുള്ള മാർഗം അത് നമ്മൾ കളയുന്നു. ആ മാർഗത്തിലെ മുന്നോട്ട് പോകാനുള്ള സാധ്യത നമ്മുടെ കുറവാകുന്നു. അപ്പോൾ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ ഒരു കാര്യം പറയുന്നുണ്ട്, എല്ലാവരും അവരുടെ പൂർണ്ണമായ സ്വരൂപത്തിനെ അറിയാനുള്ള വഴിയിലാണ് പോകുന്നത്. ചിലർ അത് അങ്ങനെയാണ് എന്നുള്ള തിരിച്ചറിവോട് പോകുന്നു, ചിലർ അങ്ങനത്തെ തിരിച്ചറിവ് ഇല്ലാതെ പോകുന്നു. അറിഞ്ഞോ അറിയാതെയോ എല്ലാവരും അങ്ങോട്ടാണ് മുന്നോട്ട് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നതെന്ന്. ഒരു കീടം പോലും ആ വഴിയിലേക്കാണ് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത് എന്നാണ് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാ തത്വശാസ്ത്രങ്ങളുടെയും സാരം നമ്മൾ നോക്കിയാൽ മനുഷ്യൻ ദുഃഖത്തിൽ നിന്ന് മുക്തനാകണം. മനുഷ്യന് ദുഃഖം ഉണ്ടാകാൻ പാടില്ല. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ ദുഃഖം അനുഭവിക്കുമ്പോൾ ആ ദുഃഖം നിന്ന് മാറി നിൽക്കാൻ എന്തെങ്കിലും വഴി ഉണ്ടാകണം എന്നുള്ളതാണ് ബൗദ്ധിക തത്വശാസ്ത്രങ്ങൾ അല്ലെങ്കിൽ സാമൂഹ്യ തത്വശാസ്ത്രങ്ങൾ, ശാസ്ത്രം ഒക്കെ എല്ലാം പറയുന്നത്. സയൻസിൽ, ശാസ്ത്രത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ ശ്രമിക്കുന്നത് മനുഷ്യൻ്റെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ വിഷമങ്ങൾ, പ്രയാസങ്ങൾ എങ്ങനെ കുറവാക്കി കൊടുക്കാം എന്നുള്ളതാണ്. അപ്പോൾ അങ്ങനെ ഇരിക്കെ നമ്മൾ ആത്മീയ വഴികളിലൂടെ നമ്മുടെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ ദുഃഖങ്ങളെ അവസാനിപ്പിക്കാൻ നമുക്ക് പറ്റും. അത് നമുക്ക് വേണം. അങ്ങനെ ദുഃഖങ്ങളെ അവസാനിപ്പിച്ചാൽ നമുക്ക് പരമശാന്തി കിട്ടും. അങ്ങനെ പരമശാന്തി കിട്ടിയാൽ ആ അനുഭവം നമ്മുടെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ പ്രതിഫലിക്കും. അങ്ങനെ ആ അനുഭവം നമ്മുടെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ പ്രതിഫലിക്കുമ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ട് അതിൻ്റെ സ്വാധീനം കൊണ്ട് പലർക്കും ഗുണമുണ്ടാവും. അതുതന്നെയാണ് വലിയൊരു തലത്തിൽ, വലിയൊരു തോതിൽ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളിൻ്റെ ജീവിതത്തിൽ സംഭവിച്ചത്. പലരും പറയുന്ന പോലെ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ 11 സെപ്റ്റംബർ 1897 ഷിക്കാഗോ മഹാനഗരത്തിൽ വെച്ച് ധർമ്മ മഹാസഭയിൽ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് ബ്രദേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് അമേരിക്ക എന്ന് സംബോധനം ചെയ്തതുകൊണ്ടാണ് കയ്യടി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. 2 നിമിഷം അല്ലെങ്കിൽ 3 നിമിഷത്തേക്ക്, 3 നിമിഷത്തിനേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ എന്ന്. അപ്പോൾ അതിൽ നമുക്ക് കാണാൻ പറ്റും ഈ ഷിക്കാഗോ പാർലമെൻറ്റ് ഓഫ് റിലിജൻസ് അതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് എഴുതിയിരിക്കുന്ന ആധികാരികമായിട്ടുള്ള 2 ചരിത്രങ്ങളിലും വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ ഇങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞപ്പോൾ കയ്യടി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നു. സെവറൽ മിനിറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നു. അതായത് 2 നിമിഷം എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ കപ്പിൾ ഓഫ് മിനിറ്റ്സ് എന്നാണ് ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ. സെവറൽ മിനിറ്റ്സ് എന്ന് വെച്ചാൽ 2-നേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ, അതായത് 3 മിനിറ്റിനേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ എന്ന്. അപ്പോൾ ഇന്ന് കേരളത്തിൽ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ മാത്രമല്ല, വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളൊക്കെ കുറേ കഴിഞ്ഞ് ഈ അടുത്ത കാലത്ത് ജനിച്ച ചില തന്നെ ബുദ്ധിജീവി എന്ന് വിശേഷിപ്പിക്കുന്ന ചില ആൾക്കാർ അങ്ങനെ ഒരു സംഭവം നടന്നിട്ടില്ല, ഇതൊക്കെ വെറുതെ തള്ളാണ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നു. ചരിത്രത്തിനെ തീരെ വായിക്കാതെ, ഒന്നും മനസ്സിലാക്കാതെ നമ്മുടെ ഭാരതീയ സംസ്കാരത്തിനെ തള്ളിപ്പറയാനുള്ള ഏതൊരു അവസരവും കളയാത്ത ഈ ബുദ്ധിജീവികളുടെ അടുത്ത് എനിക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത് ഇതേ ഉള്ളൂ: ചരിത്രം ഒന്ന് വായിക്കൂ. ചരിത്രം വായിച്ചാൽ അവിടെ ഇതൊക്കെ ഉണ്ട്, ഇതൊക്കെ എല്ലാം ഇൻ്റർനെറ്റിൽ ലഭ്യമാണ്. അപ്പോൾ ഇതൊക്കെ വായിച്ചാൽ നമുക്ക് മനസ്സിലാവും ഇങ്ങനെ സംഭവിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ട്. പക്ഷേ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് പറയുന്ന കാരണം, വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് ബ്രദേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് അമേരിക്ക എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് കയ്യടി ഉണ്ടായിരുന്നത് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആൾക്കാർക്ക് ഞാൻ പറയാം, ആ പാർലമെൻറ്റ് ഓഫ് റിലിജൻസിൽ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ മുന്നിലും പിന്നീടും കുറേ ആൾക്കാർ ഈ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് ബ്രദേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് അമേരിക്ക എന്ന് ആ സദസ്സിനെ സംബോധനം ചെയ്തു. വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ അമേരിക്കയിൽ എത്തിയപ്പോൾ അമേരിക്കയുടെ സംസ്കാരത്തിനെ നിരീക്ഷിച്ചപ്പോൾ, അതിനെ പഠിച്ചപ്പോൾ, അവിടെ അമേരിക്കയിൽ പൊതുവെ ആൾക്കാർ മറ്റാൾക്കാരനെ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് ബ്രദേഴ്സ് എന്ന് സംബോധനം ചെയ്യുന്നത് ശ്രദ്ധിച്ച് അതുകൊണ്ടാണ് സ്വാമിജി ആ വാക്കുകൾ ഉപയോഗിച്ചത്. എന്നാൽ സ്വാമിജി പറഞ്ഞ ആ വാക്കുകൾ കൊണ്ടല്ല 4000-നേക്കാളും കൂടുതൽ ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന സദസ്സ് എഴുന്നേറ്റ് നിന്ന് കൈയടി അടിച്ചത്. വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ സിസ്റ്റേഴ്സ് ആൻഡ് ബ്രദേഴ്സ് ഓഫ് അമേരിക്ക എന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ സ്വാമിജിയിലുള്ള ആ ആത്മീയ തിരിച്ചറിവ്, ആത്മീയ ജ്ഞാനം, ആത്മീയ ബോധം, അതിൻ്റെ സ്വാധീനം അവിടെയുള്ള എല്ലാവർക്കും ഉണ്ടായി എന്നുള്ളതാണ് യഥാർത്ഥം. ഇതിനെക്കുറിച്ച് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ അടുത്ത് മന്ത്രം കിട്ടിയ, അതായത് ഒരു ദർശനത്തിലൂടെ മന്ത്രം കിട്ടിയ അശോകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പിന്നീട് പറയുന്നു. ആ അശോകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ നിരീക്ഷണത്തിൽ, മാർഗദർശനത്തിൽ സ്വാമി വിവേകാനന്ദ ഇൻ ദ വെസ്റ്റ് ന്യൂ ഡിസ്കവറീസ് എന്ന് 6 ഭാഗങ്ങളിൽ ഒരു മഹത് ഗ്രന്ഥത്തിനെ രചിച്ച മേരി ലൂയി ബർഗ് എന്ന് പിന്നീട് സിസ്റ്റർ ഗാർഗി എന്നറിയപ്പെട്ട ആ ലേഖികയാണ് ഇതിനെ അവരുടെ പുസ്തകത്തിൽ പ്രത്യേകിച്ച് പറയുന്നത്. അപ്പോൾ വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ അവിടെ അമേരിക്കയിൽ ചെന്നപ്പോൾ വാഗ്മി കൊണ്ട് മാത്രമല്ല അവിടെ ആൾക്കാരുടെ മനസ്സിനെയൊക്കെ ജയിച്ചത്. അത് ഈ ആത്മീയ ശാസ്ത്രങ്ങൾ പറയുന്ന സത്യങ്ങൾ ഇന്നും സത്യമാണ്. ഇന്നും അതിനെ നമുക്ക് കണ്ടെത്താം. അത് കണ്ടെത്തണമെങ്കിൽ അതിന് പ്രത്യേക വിദ്യാഭ്യാസമോ പ്രത്യേക സാമ്പത്തിക ശേഷിയോ പ്രത്യേക വേറെ ഒരു കഴിവും വേണ്ട. മനുഷ്യൻ ആർക്കും തന്നെ ആ ദിവ്യ സ്വരൂപത്തിനെ കണ്ടെത്താം. ഓരോ വ്യക്തിയുടെയും യഥാർത്ഥ സ്വരൂപത്തിനെ കണ്ടെത്താം എന്നുള്ളതാണ് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറഞ്ഞത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെയാണ് ബാഹ്യ ചിഹ്നങ്ങൾ, ബാഹ്യ നേട്ടങ്ങളൊക്കെ സ്വാമിജി അതിനെ വലിയ കാര്യമാക്കുന്നില്ല. നമ്മൾ ഏത് ഭക്ഷണമാണോ കഴിക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ എത്തരം ഉടുപ്പാണോ ധരിക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മൾ ഏത് ഭാഷയിലാണ് സംസാരിക്കുന്നത്, നമ്മുടെ അടുത്ത് എത്ര സ്വത്ത്, എത്ര ധനമുണ്ട്, നമുക്ക് എത്ര വിദ്യാഭ്യാസമുണ്ട് എന്നുള്ളതൊക്കെ എല്ലാം ഗൗണമാണ്. അതൊക്കെ പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യങ്ങളല്ല. പ്രധാനപ്പെട്ട കാര്യം എന്താണ്? വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറയുന്നു. അത് നമ്മൾ വീണ്ടും വീണ്ടും നമ്മളെ ഓർമ്മിപ്പിക്കണം. Each soul is potentially divine. The goal is to manifest this divinity within by controlling nature, external and internal. നമ്മുടെ പ്രകൃതി, ബാഹ്യപ്രകൃതിയും അന്തർപ്രകൃതിയും അതിനെ നിയന്ത്രിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് നമ്മളിൽ നിൽക്കുന്ന മറഞ്ഞിരിക്കുന്ന ആ ദിവ്യത്വത്തിനെ വെളിപ്പെടുത്തുന്നതാണ് ആത്മീയത. അതാണ് നമ്മുടെ ജീവിത ലക്ഷ്യം എന്നാണ് വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ പറയുന്നത്. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ കൂടുതൽ ദീർഘിപ്പിക്കാതെ നമ്മുടെ യഥാർത്ഥ സ്വരൂപം എന്താണ് എന്നുള്ള ആ വഴിയിൽ നമ്മളൊക്കെ എല്ലാവരും മുന്നോട്ട് പോകാൻ ഭഗവാൻ ശ്രീ രാമകൃഷ്ണദേവൻ, മാതൃദേവി ശ്രീ ശാരദാദേവി, വിവേകാനന്ദ സ്വാമികൾ ഇവരുടെയൊക്കെ അനുഗ്രഹം ഉണ്ടാവട്ടെ എന്ന് പ്രാർത്ഥിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഭിന്നതയിൽ നിന്ന് അഭിന്നമായ ബോധത്തിലേക്ക് പോകുന്നതാണ് യഥാർത്ഥ ആത്മീയ വഴി എന്നുള്ളത് ഓർമ്മിപ്പിച്ചുകൊണ്ട് ഞാനിവിടെ വിരമിക്കുകയാണ്. ഓം ശാന്തി ശാന്തി ശാന്തി. ഹരി ഓം തത്സത്. ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണാർപ്പണമസ്തു.
ഇത്രയും നേരം നമ്മോട് സംസാരിച്ച സ്വാമിജിക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. പവിത്രാനന്ദ സ്വാമികളുടെ പ്രഭാഷണത്തെക്കുറിച്ച് ഒരു വിശകലനം നൽകിയ നരസിംഹാനന്ദ സ്വാമിജികൾക്കും നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി രജനി ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
അംബികേ പരദേവി നമോ നമോ, ചിന്മയേ മുനിവന്ദ്യേ നമോ നമോ, നിന്മഹത്വമേയം മഹേശ്വരി കരുണാബ്ധേ. ലോകമോതവമായ ഗുണവശം ഭോഗമോക്ഷണനാശം മഹാവിഷം ആകുലം മമ തീർക്കേണമംബികേ മഹീഷാരേ. ദുർമദേന വിചാരവിഹീനമായി കർമ്മമെത്ര കഴിഞ്ഞു കഠോരമായി, നിർമ്മമേ തവ പാദം സദാഗതി ശിവജായേ. പാഹി മാം ശിവജായേ ജഗന്മയേ, ദേഹി മേ വരജാലം സുഖാസ്പദം, മോഹമൈഹികം മാറ്റുക ത്വസുഖം മമ തായേ. മോഹമൈഹികം മാറ്റുക ത്വസുഖം മമ തായേ. അംബികേ പരദേവി നമോ നമോ, ചിന്മയേ മുനിവന്ദ്യേ നമോ നമോ, നിന്മഹത്വമേയം മഹേശ്വരി കരുണാധേ.
ഭജന പാടിയ രചന ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി ജീജ ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം. ദശരഥനന്ദന രാമ രാം, ദശമുഖമർദ്ദന രാമ രാം, ദശരഥനന്ദന രാമ രാം, ദശമുഖമർദ്ദന രാമ രാം, പശുപതിരഞ്ജന രാമ രാം, പാപവിമോചന രാമ രാം, പശുപതിരഞ്ജന രാമ രാം, പാപവിമോചന രാമ രാം. ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം, ശ്രീരാം ജയ ജയ രാം. മണിമയ ഭൂഷണ രാമ രാം, മഞ്ജുള ഭാഷണ രാമ രാം, മണിമയ ഭൂഷണ രാമ രാം, മഞ്ജുള ഭാഷണ രാമ രാം. सीतावल्लभ राम राम, सौमित्री सहित राम राम, सीतावल्लभ राम राम, सौमित्री सहित राम राम. श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम. शबरी पूजित राम राम, साधु जनाश्रय राम राम, शबरी पूजित राम राम, साधु जनाश्रय राम राम. मनुकुल पुंगव राम राम, मारुति सेवित राम राम, मनुकुल पुंगव राम राम, मारुति सेवित राम राम. श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम, श्रीराम जय जय राम. रणजय रक्षक राम राम, राक्षसघातक राम राम, रणजय रक्षक राम राम, राक्षसघातक राम राम. सत्यपराक्रम राम राम, नित्यनिरञ्जन राम राम श्रीराम जय जय राम श्रीराम जय जय राम श्रीराम जय जय राम.
ഹരി ഓം. ഭജന പാടിയ ജീജ ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി രജനി ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ പരനേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ പരനേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ നിർമ്മലമൂർത്തേ നിത്യാനന്ദ ശർമ്മതരൂപ സമേത ദേവ നിർമ്മലമൂർത്തേ നിത്യാനന്ദ ശർമ്മതരൂപ സമേത ദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ പരനേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ സർവമതങ്ങളും ഒന്നായി കണ്ട സർവചരാചര പാലദേവ സർവമതങ്ങളും ഒന്നായി കണ്ട സർവചരാചര പാലദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ പരനേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ താവകഗീതം നാവിലുദിക്കാൻ ഭാവുകമരുളണേ ദേവാദേവ താവകഗീതം നാവിലുദിക്കാൻ ഭാവുകമരുളണേ ദേവാദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ പരനേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ ഗുരുദേവ.
ഭജന പാടിയ രജനി ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. അടുത്തതായി ജീജ ടീച്ചർ ആലപിക്കുന്ന ഭജന.
രാമകൃഷ്ണ ശിഷ്യരത്ന ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവ പാദമേ ശ്രീ വിവേകാനന്ദ വന്ദ്യ ജീവമിത്രമേ ജീവമിത്രമേ ധന്യ സ്നേഹപാത്രമേ ഭാരതമാതാവു പെറ്റ പുണ്യപൂരമേ പുണ്യപൂരമേ ദേവശാന്തിധാമമേ നിർമ്മല വൈരാഗ്യമെങ്കലങ്കുരിക്കുവാൻ നിർമ്മലാകൃതേ ഭവത്പാദസേവനം രാമകൃഷ്ണ ശിഷ്യരത്നജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ ചിത്തശുദ്ധി ചേർത്തു നിത്യം കാത്തുകൊള്ളണേ കാത്തുകൊള്ളണേ സച്ചിത് ബ്രഹ്മപുഞ്ചമേ നിത്യമല്ല ജീവിതമിതു ധന്യമെത്രയും ധന്യമെത്രയും പദേ ബദ്ധമാകയാൽ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ശിഷ്യരത്നജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ രാമകൃഷ്ണ ശിഷ്യരത്നജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ മംഗളം ഭവതു സാധു സംഗമം സുഖം മംഗളാകൃതേ ഗുരുദേഹി മംഗളം മംഗളം ഭവതു സാധു സംഗമം സുഖം മംഗളാകൃതേ ഗുരുദേഹി മംഗളം രാമകൃഷ്ണ ശിഷ്യരത്ന ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ ജ്ഞാനദീപമേ ഗുരുദേവപാദമേ.
ഹരി ഓം. ഭജന പാടിയ ജീജ ടീച്ചർക്ക് നന്ദി പറയുന്നു. ഇതോടുകൂടി ഇന്നത്തെ കോഴിക്കോട് ശ്രീരാമകൃഷ്ണ മിഷൻ ഓൺലൈനായി നടത്തുന്ന ആത്മീയ അന്തർയോഗം അവസാനിച്ചിരിക്കുകയാണ്. പതിവ് പോലെ അടുത്ത മാസം സെപ്റ്റംബർ 5-ാം തീയതി ആദ്യത്തെ ഞായറാഴ്ച നമ്മൾ വീണ്ടും ഒത്തുചേരുന്നതായിരിക്കും. നമസ്കാരം.